What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com for yet another edition of our Three Things post-game podcast. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me from Scott Stadium in Charlottesville, Virginia, it's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones, AJ, and we are finally able to come on here for the first time this season, it feels like, and have a different conversation. Maybe going back to the Minnesota game, granted, it was the first game of the year, but we are able to talk some different things today than we've at least talked over the last month or so, because Carolina obviously coming out with an impressive, inspired win, 41-14 over Virginia. And AJ, we would be hard pressed in this one to not start with the defense. So before we do that, though, Carolina improving to 4-4 on the year, 1-3 in ACC play, and Virginia dropping to 4-4 and 2-3 on the season, AJ. But like I just said, defense, man, I mean, you talk about a completely different unit today than we've seen arguably all season, really. Held UVA to just 7 rush yards on 29 carries, forced 2 turnovers, one of which was a 84-yard pick six by Javari Ritzie. 10 sacks, highest since 2000. 3 of those coming from Cayman Rucker, who's obviously missed a big chunk of this season as well. Not to mention he also had a pick 2. Virginia finishing with just 288 yards on the day. AJ, 77 at halftime. Dominant first half in particular from the Tar Heels. So it looked pretty dang good to me on TV, AJ. Did it look as good in person as it looked on the television this afternoon?
Open air press box. So not only did it look,
did hear it and feel it a little bit.
You could hear it. You can hear the pads popping. Mm-hmm. They were popping pads. By the way, did you say Javari Ritzie returned an interception, 84 yards for a touchdown?
Yeah, man. I mean,
Mac Brown swore it was J.J. Jones. Right? Did he?
Yeah, he was gone, man. He looked pretty quick.
He did a stiff arm. I asked him. He said I thought it said you switch hands and stiff arm Calandry, and he did. Javari said he played quarterback in high school. So
I did listen to his interview. It was pretty interesting.
He had a run like that up the gut when he was a freshman in high school. I'm like, man,
can't imagine him.
I never tackle that in high school. Good gracious. I think that was sort of the exclamation mark on the performance today. It was, they weren't good immediately. Mm-hmm. We had an ugly first possession, and I'm like, God, I think they had an ineligible receiver downfield, kind of blow that possession, and then they had a poor punt. Virginia had good field position, and the Wahoos got a field goal. And the defense was fortunate because Virginia got first and goal at the 1 and had a bad snap, and then there was a penalty or something, and they got fortunate, and they kind of survived an early, really ugly start. It looked like it had the makings of a whitewash the other way, and then they just started getting some first downs. Mm-hmm. And Omarion doing what Omarion does. They got some first downs. JJ made that play. They get into the end zone. And I just think that there was a weight lifted, and it was something that they were able to sort of feed on. There's a domino effect, and I'm going overall with the team here, but I'm really going to the defense here. There's a domino effect that when things start to go poorly, everything goes poorly. And we've seen this team lose games the last 2 weeks in which the offense did plenty to win, but the defense didn't. A couple things would go bad, and it would start to spiral out of control. When Duke finally cracked the code back in Durham, then the Tar Heels defense started just giving up gashes and stuff. What you saw today was a defense that did the reverse. They fed off of each other's good plays. They were able to get energy and juice from it, and the communication and the pre-snap stuff, and they were missing 2 starting defensive backs.
Yeah.
And don't forget that sacks are also coverage, because if a receiver's wide open, the QB can get rid of him, and they're never going to get the sack. So Marcus Allen was out, and Jakeem Harris was out. Will Hart played the whole game, played well. Mm-hmm. They were kind of using Terrain Stewart and Ty Adams a little bit over there at corner in place of Marcus Allen, but they actually played a lot of guys on defense. But the defense started getting pressure. And at first, Carolina's offensive line kind of struggled. Howard Sampson was getting eaten up, but he adjusted and did better. And Carolina's offensive line got a little bit better, and Jacoby got a little bit more time. And while that was going on, the defense just kept getting more pass pressure. And I think what you saw them do was the first time since Minnesota they played by design. Mm-hmm. But they would kind of put a web around Calandry. He couldn't get out. Mm-hmm. And he kind of leaned and backed into sacks because there was nowhere to go. So often the guy that would get credited with sack was not the guy that put the first initial pressure on him. There were multiple occasions in which there's a player here, and a player here, and then somebody else comes in and gets the sack. Or there was Des Evans at the end of the first half where he just mauled him by himself. So 6 different guys with a sack in the first half.
It's pretty good.
You don't see that at any level very often. They were tuned in, they were dialed in, they were clued in, and they played with athletic ability. They played freely. They didn't play like they were carrying the weight of anything on their shoulders. And they say that's what they're supposed to be. And when they don't have the ankle weights kind of dragging them down that they were dealing with before the open date period, that they're not going to play as fast. They're not going to react as well. Their minds aren't going to be as sharp. They're not going to feel as free on the field. And when that's the case, you're slow across the board. As I've told you before, man, you give me a 3-star athlete who always knows how to read pre-snap over a 4-star defensive player who doesn't, because the 3-star is always going to be in the right place a lot more than the 4-star. So what you saw today were 4-star caliber athletes with a 4-star mindset. And it kind of synced, and they were fantastic. 77 yards in the first half. UVA got some big gains late, had a 68-yard touchdown, I believe it was, or a gain.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Coverage.
It was a totally broken play. You had Will Hardy and Caleb Koss kind of having a few words about where the responsibility was with that play, but it was a breakdown. It happens, but it didn't happen until Carolina was up 38-6.
Yeah.
So if that breakdown happens in the first quarter and they're kind of, I wouldn't say bickering, but like, hey, man, this is your responsibility. No, man, it's your responsibility kind of thing. That thing could have spiraled any other direction. So I think they played with their ears pinned back. They played with clear vision, clear minds. They played completely free. And once they started seeing results, they were able to feed off of it. They haven't been able to do that for a long time. Charlotte had 8 explosives against them. Central had an early big drive, and it just kind of hung over the rest of the game. So people say, well, God, even Charlotte or Central moved the ball against them. It was like one drive, basically, but it was early, and it stuck with them. So this was their best defensive performance of the season, and it is absolutely no coincidence that in the only 2 games this year in which the defense has been dominant against an FBS team, Cayman Rucker was on the field and healthy.
Oh, yeah.
He was not healthy against Georgia Tech. He wasn't close to being ready to go, or 100% rather. He was ready to go, but not 100%. But he's 100% healthy today. 3 sacks, 8 tackles, interception, affecting the game all over the place. And of course, he was in Minnesota as well. So it's a different team when Cayman Rucker's out there. You got to figure if he's in Durham, they win that game.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, especially with how well Carolina played. Yeah.
And it's tied with a minute left, less than a minute left 2 weeks ago against Georgia Tech. If Cayman Rucker's on the field, maybe they get a stop earlier and they're not in position to give up that game-winning touchdown. So I think the effect that he has on this team is as significant as anybody, and maybe more significant than anybody else. And the proof, my friend, is in the pudding.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. Just to go through his stats real quick: 8 tackles, 5 solo, 3 sacks, which was a game high. 3.5 tackles, 4 loss, and obviously the interception as well to start the second half, which was incredibly important because Virginia was in scoring position. Let's not get it twisted.
And he was held about a dozen times.
Yeah, it was.
The press box. Yeah, we're closer. And the press box here is in the middle. It's in between the upper deck and lower deck. So close. It's open air. And there were a couple of times where he's held. And he's trying to get away, and there's a fistful of jerseys. He's trying to let the ref know while he's being held. So basically, if you take away the holds, and I'm not making excuses, but if you take away the holds, his effectiveness percentage for this game will be off the charts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, he was fantastic today. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that Carolina, had its best performance of the season with as well as the defensive line play. We talk about it all the time, AJ, but I tweeted out in the third quarter, it's genuinely amazing to me watching football how consistent pressure from your defensive front completely changes everything. Because I don't think today, we're going to talk about the offense in a second. This is the segue into it. I don't think today the defensive line's performance only galvanized the defense. I think it galvanized the entire team. It did. It was so clear and so evident, and we just haven't seen performances like that. I mean, again, 10 sacks in a game. You got to go back 24 years the last time that happened.
2000 was the last time. And they also had 5 hurries. So that means that they forced Calandria into a high-stress situation 15 times.
Yeah. And he looked very, very poor today because of that. And obviously that led to Carolina really being able to control this game. Again, to galvanize the offense, let's talk about them here. Because I thought
how many yards rushing they give up? You got the stats in front of you.
7 rushing yards for Virginia, 29 carries. That's a wild stat right there, AJ. I almost had to double take it that a few times. Just like unreal. Just a fantastic performance from the defensive line. And again, they set the tone for the game, and you got to give them a ton of helmet stickers that a lot of guys across that line should be getting today, because they were fantastic, to say the least. Now, let's shift over to the offense, because again, hard pressed to talk about, not start with the defense, but we hard pressed not to talk about the offense, because I thought they were incredibly impressive today as well. And Criswell, 19 for 30, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns. Massive day for J.J. Jones, 5 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, yeah, and Omarion Hampton, particularly really, really impressive and crucial in the first half for Carolina, where it was a little bit of a tighter game. 105 yards on 26 carries, 2 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards on the season for Hampton as well after today's performance. But AJ Criswell, we can start with him, and that'll lead into the rest of the offense, because, again, I thought his play was incredibly impressive, arguably the most impressive game we've seen from him, I think, in terms of an overall package as a starter this season. But you could see him grow in confidence a little bit too. Made some tough throws. Wasn't always protected great by the offensive line, but I did think the offensive line improved as the game went on a little bit. And I just think it was a really impressive performance from him. But I mentioned in the first half too, I thought Omarion Hampton was incredibly important in that first half, because a lot of people might look at this game and the scoreboard and think it was just a dominant win from start to finish. And in some ways, maybe it was, but that first half was a battle, and Carolina did some nice things to be able to take a lead into the halftime break. But Omarion Hampton was incredibly crucial in kind of getting the offense going early on, because there was one series in particular where he just, and I'm sure you could hear it and see it a lot better than I could on TV, but he just absolutely ran over 2 guys back to back on back-to-back plays. And that set the tone of the physicality of the game. I mean, it really did, because the defense kind of set it from the line of scrimmage. Hampton kind of set it on the offense. And again, it led to what was a big explosion in the second half for the offense, which led to a big time victory. So talk to me a little bit about what you saw from the offense, because again, I just thought overall a lot of good things and a lot of positives to take into a very winnable game at Florida State next weekend.
There were 3 occasions he ran somebody over that I could hear it. He popped right up, and the other guy, the Virginia guys, got up a little slow. He was punishing people. Now, he also, you mentioned the rushing yards, but he was very effective as a receiver in the first half, especially on that one drive that got them going. He ended up scoring, and what it did was it began a sequence of 4 minutes and 25 seconds in which the Tar Heels scored 3 offensive touchdowns. So that, to me, was huge, because he got it going. It's like he was pounding their defense, and you could almost see a sense of helplessness with UVA, and they were trying to sell out to stop him, and he did a pretty good job. Everybody's done a pretty good job against Omarion the last few games. Even though he's getting 100 yards, he's not getting high per carry averages, especially if you take out that 171-yard run he had a few weeks ago. But what it then did was just it kind of opened up some of the edge stuff, and you finally saw Criswell complete a pass, a long ball into the end zone, and you saw J.J. Jones with as impressive as his acceleration wide receiver screen was, and that was impressive. Mm-hmm. The catch he made while being held, while pass interference was being committed, he caught it, came down, got his foot in, held onto the ball. That was a great play, and Jacoby throwing the ball pretty much the only spot he could get it right there. That was the moment of the season in terms of Jacoby Criswell making a play. Making a big play, and it just so happened that his most veteran receiver also made a big play. And then the other touchdown they got in that sequence was one early in the second half. So they just kind of took off. It was a battle on the score, but I thought that Carolina owned the game.
Yeah.
And I guess a way to put it would be, I thought the Tar Heels were teeing it up.
Mm-hmm.
They were teeing it up to just blast it. And they had that sequence where they blasted it. Virginia totally butchered an offensive possession late in the first half, and Carolina took advantage. Carolina was able to, they had 2 incomplete passes, didn't force Carolina to use timeouts. Tar Heels were able to save the timeouts and use them before the punt and then use one when they had the ball, and they were able to they get that touchdown. They looked like they were playing for a field goal, but there wasn't great resistance. They took advantage of it, and they went for the strike. And I think for a coaching staff that has played it a little conservatively at times, and I totally understand why, and think that a lot of times it's been smart, it showed you the confidence they had in where the game was by going for the touchdown in that situation and calling that play. I think they thought they had UVA on the ropes, and they did. It was 24-6 at the half, and let's be honest, I think it was good. It was on half the student body left. Even didn't come back, and by 38-6, when Javaria made that play, that place emptied out. So offense really, really solid, did what it had to do on a day that the defense was outstanding. It's interesting. I think I tweeted it or I put it on the board. I can't recall. But the last time North Carolina wore the uniforms it had today on the road with Mac Brown as coach, it was a 17-10 win at Clemson in 2017. And they thoroughly dominated the Tigers. And I thought it was a very similar defensive performance today. And it's kind of interesting because those last couple of MAC defenses that wore this uniform on the road were special, arguably the top defense in college football both years. So, hey, I know we deal in a world of coincidences, but when you saw what happened in the World Series last night and how that connected directly to 1988, coincidences occur in sports, and it makes them more magical. And I thought that there was a little bit of that dust sprinkled here today with this team, and they played like it. If you squinted your eyes, you could have seen a Brian Simmons out there. You could have seen some of those. You could have seen Dre out there. You could have seen Robert Williams in coverage at times out there. And that's how impressive this was. And on the other end, they did enough to win a game and win going away, which is what the offense did in 97. So this was a very, very thorough win, both sides of the ball. Special teams wasn't great, but it didn't hurt them. And I thought this team got better as the game went on. I thought they were able to layer positive things, which I guess we'll talk about here in a minute, because I think that that's the cord cutting to the first 7 games and all the things they've been through, and they're still going through stuff. And it was very impressive for them to get the win, checking the boxes that they did, because a lot of us thought maybe they might win, but I never saw them checking all these boxes so emphatically. They just didn't check them. They colored them in completely.
Yeah, just a complete performance, I think, on both sides of the ball. And again, that's what you want. That's what it takes to win in this league. And when you play a team like UVA, who we talked about in the show, who's okay, but not great, when you kind of dive into them, you can have games like this. And again, I thought Carolina was worth every bit of 41 points today. And
you put Tony and Elliott, by the way, on the hot streak. I talked to a good buddy of mine who's covered UVA. Nobody knows UVA better than him. And you know Hootie, Jerry Rackler.
Yeah.
And he said, before the game, he says, Tony needs to win this. Well, not only did Tony not win, but it was a really bad look. So you've got a couple of coaches and perhaps similar situations. I think the one that needed to win badly got it, and the one that needed to win real badly didn't get it.
Yeah, it's not a UVA podcast, but I believe.
Well, I'm making a point there just about how Mac stepped up and his team stepped up, and I thought that UVA looked a lot like Carolina looks when things aren't going well.
Yeah,
it's the Murphy's Law thing. I thought it was the flip side today. Good things started happening, and they were able to stack them and feed off of them, and more good things happened. We haven't seen this football team do that much in a while. In fact, it's been 349 days since they won an ACC game. It was 42 days since they had won a game. And it had been 49 days since they beat an FBS team. And it had been 349 days since they beat a power conference team. So and that was Duke last year, November 11th, and they tried to give that game away.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. No, it was big time today for Carolina. And just to add something to Virginia, I was going to say, you look at their schedule going into the rest of the season. I think it's at Pitt,
they're done.
At Notre Dame, SMU at home, and then a trip to Virginia Tech. So
they won't win again. Carolina, on the other hand, could win more, although it would be very Carolina-like to go to Tallahassee next week and lay an egg, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that's the last thing we want to talk about. Just talk about what this means, because Florida's trip to Florida State coming up next weekend, obviously in Tallahassee. I know a lot of people don't believe that in college football things carry over from week to week. I personally don't lean on that side. I do think things connect in a lot of ways, and I do think matchups before games can benefit and hurt teams. And you look at the fact that Florida State's getting ready to play at Miami in about an hour. before a trip to, Carolina, welcome into town next week. Maybe that helps the Tar Heels, maybe Florida State. Who knows how they perform tonight, but maybe that, is a little bit of a letdown spot for Florida State, who is not very good, to say the least, this season. So I say that to say, you did a drop earlier this week, AJ, talking about kind of the 2-game sprint before another bye week. We talked a lot about how Carolina's schedule, the last half of the season sets up so well. Not only when you look at these bye weeks within, a 3-week span essentially, but you also factor in the fact that Carolina has some extremely winnable games to end the year, and it starts here, and it'll obviously continue with a trip to Tallahassee next week. And so this is an opportunity that Carolina has to win 2 in a row, go into another bye week, rest up before they welcome Wake Forest at home, which, again, very, very winnable game. So I think Carolina's going to go home feeling really good tonight. They're going to have a lot of tape to look at going into next week to feel really good about. I think the vibes, watching some of the, the press conferences, it felt like Carolina played inspired today. Mac was emotional, not only in his TV post-game press conference, but his post-game press conference you guys were there for. So I think there is a bit of a feel-good factor and maybe a little bit of a – it felt like Carolina, with everything that's gone over the last couple of weeks, losing like they did to Georgia Tech, Tylee Kraft passing away that day, having to go to his funeral, a week, last weekend. It felt like a win today not only could galvanize this team a little bit, but it felt like Carolina was able to kind of sit back and right now and exhale a little bit. Okay, we've got a chance now. We can win some games, and we can kind of move on from what's been an incredibly difficult last couple of weeks. So, again, AJ, we've talked about it. I think the message from this one, it was an all-around really, really good day at the office, and Carolina has the opportunity now moving into the rest of the season to really do some nice things. So let's see what happens.
Well, they know what the blueprint looks like now.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen, even Minnesota wasn't really that way that game went. They now know what the blueprint looks like. I believe 100% that the things that they've been through gave the team perspective, and they didn't stress so much over football. Now, football is incredibly important, as Mac noted again today, but real life is more important. And I think given the spiral that this team was on, it collectively needed something to put away from football. And they did that, and they were able to gain perspective from that and gain strength by seeing what Tylee went through. There was a sequence in the first half today when Jacoby Criswell came up and he's holding his ribs, the same ribs he held when he missed the last 2 plays of the Georgia Tech game. And he said he's got a wristband on that has Jacoby's name on there. He looked at it, he's like, I got to fight through this. And I asked him, because I think sometimes people might see stuff like that as a little bit disingenuous. It's not really real. And I said, how real is the power? How strong is that power? How much fuel do you get from it? He said, it's amazing. And I believe that it is. And I don't think kids are going to say that just to say it. I think they say it because they give you examples, like when Jacoby got up off the ground a few times in the Georgia Tech game. He said maybe 6 months earlier, a year earlier, he wouldn't have gotten off the ground so quickly. But he did now because he saw what someone else was dealing with. And I know that, again, some people may say, they're just trying to milk it too much. I don't buy that at all. I think it's real. I think it's a living reality that they've seen it. And I'll tell you, they're dealing with Mitch Mason, the team chaplain.
Yeah.
Mitch. Mitch is an unbelievable guy. I mean, he's an unbelievable man. And kids swear by him, and he's having a tough time. So if we're asking again, if you are someone who prays, please pray for Mitch Mason, because I had a very quick word with Mac after his presser, and Mitch needs it right now. So I don't really want to expound on any more than that, but these kids see it. They did a FaceTime with Mitch this morning. It's the last 2 games he hasn't been with the team before the game.
Yeah.
And he's always with the team before the game, and they get tremendous strength from him. So I don't think you can underscore that stuff, but I also think that they did something really well on the field today, and now they have a blueprint, but they have to make it matter. They have to back it up, and that is something that this program just hasn't done. They haven't done it under Mac that much, where they back stuff up. And this is a moment in time where, with so many people that are on the get rid of Mac bandwagon, and there are very few people on the give him more time bandwagon. If there are, they're not very
loud
boisterous about it.
Yeah.
The antis are like our message board thread during the game today was not that active because they were playing well, because there was nothing for people to complain.
Yeah, Twitter was kind of like that too in a lot of ways.
Because
it just
people
wasn't.
they want to drink and they want to complain and do whatever. And if they don't drink, they still want to complain. It's more fun to do that. We all feel better about ourselves when we're squashing someone else like a bug.
That is true.
Which I think is a fascinating thing. But now these kids know what it's like, so they have to go do it again. They should go to Tallahassee and win that game.
Yeah.
Without a whole lot of trouble. They should do the same thing at home against Wake Forest. We've seen Boston College come back down to earth. They would have, I think, a 50% chance of going up there and getting a win, and they should beat State at home. Because what you saw today were all the parts kind of allowed to be the parts. It was a liberating performance for this group. So when you see all these athletes that are liberated and they play freely and their minds are not cluttered with stuff and they're not carrying extra weights like the hunchback, then you see them play football. You see J.J. Jones make a play. You see Cayman Rucker make a play. You see Stick Lane make a play. You see Jacoby Cowan make plays today. Jeff Collins has been praising him, but Jacoby hasn't been grading out that great. But he'll grade out much better after today because he made plays. And I just think that's so important for today, but they must bottle it up and take it with them next week, all during the week and next week. They've achieved nothing. They're 4-4 now. They're still 2 wins away just from a garbage bowl. Theoretically speaking, on an individual basis, they could be 8-4 and have a chance to finish 9-4 and win a bowl game. Wouldn't that be a kick in the head?
Yeah.
All the people who want to make declarative statements and decisions on things before it's even over with yet. So I'm not saying one way or the other about what I think will happen or should happen. I'm not going there with that. I am saying that there's still 4 games left, and if this team plays like it did today in the last 4, they're going to have a bowl game somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you want a bowl game? I don't know. Bub was in that press conference today. He's standing behind us, and I saw a big smile on his face.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Someone who walked by him outside the locker room, and he said Bubba was just downright giddy. Yeah. So for people that say, Bubba and Mac maybe don't get along great or whatever the case may be, they both want to win. I can tell you that. I mean, I'm not going to talk to the relationship or anything like that because I'm not privy to that information for the most part. But they both want to win, and they got to win today, and everybody in that program needed it. When we walked into the press conference, Jacob, I'm thinking, a couple of us are talking, how are we going to hear the interviews? Because the locker room's right next door, and it's shaking. Think about going into a nightclub, or like a nightclub, and you could feel the shake. But let's say you go in, and there are a whole lot of people in there, so the shake sound it almost caroms off the walls. So you got the boom, 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 boom. That's what it felt like in the press room. And you could hear just the tone of laughter and yelling and towel snapping, which I know they don't do, but I'm using it metaphorically just so people can envision a very happy, joyful locker room. And that's what it was because they needed it badly. Yeah. They needed something like that badly. Now they got to act like they need it and want it again next week because it would be just like North Carolina to go down there and lose next week the way they beat Virginia today. It would just be like they did it last time they went down. They were fifth in the country.
I know.
And it blew up out of the gate with the block punt and a couple block punts and just misery. So they got to go down there and be ready to play and just let everything else take care of itself. Yeah. If they're liberated, they'll win next week. If they're not liberated, they won't win next week.
Yeah, springboard, man. It's got to be a springboard because, again, like you said it, I think you hit on a key thing. It doesn't really mean a lot. It's great, and it means a lot for the team and the program, but in the grand scheme of this season, if you win today, it's great and it's cool, but if you go to lose next week, and it doesn't mean much. It really doesn't. So Carolina's, it's a springboard, and hopefully they can go down to Florida State and have a good performance like they did today because, again, I think Carolina fans should enjoy this one. It was a really positive day for the Tar Heels. And, AJ, real quick, I think it would be wrong for us I know it's not a UVA podcast, but Mac talked about it in the post-game press conference. Just class act. I know he's on the hot seat. You can talk about all you want, but Tony Elliott, man, class act. I mean, Mac talked about it. Go listen to Mac's press conference because it was really interesting. But, players writing letters to the, individual players on the Carolina team. Every player on the team got one. Stickers on the back of their helmets for Ty Lee, which was initiated by UVA. I mean, with everything that UVA went through last year and Tony Elliott having to guide his team through that, just an absolutely class act. So again, it'd be wrong if we didn't mention that in some way, shape.
I agree. And we had a moment of silence here for Tyler, which was very warm.
Yeah, that's all.
Let me go back to football for a second. One thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to is Jacoby Criswell started out 3 for 9 today and was 16 for his last 21.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've seen parts of his game, like something step forward each week. And he's becoming a decent quarterback. And what you saw today was a guy finally hit some passes while rolling out. Mm-hmm. He had a nice when he found Chris Culliver over the middle, it was a nice job by a young guy like Culliver to find that spot because he was scrambling and it was no longer the design route. But Criswell found him, and I asked him about that. And I asked him about his development, his growth as a guy who can make things happen when he's on the move, because he couldn't do that at all at first. And he said that he's been working his off on it. And as he's getting more confident, the game is slowing down and the vision becomes clearer. And that particular play that I asked him about, the Culliver play, he said it was slow motion to him. And that's why I was able to see it. So you're also watching a quarterback get better. We talked even after the losses here recently, we were seeing some good signs from him about improving each week. So now he's got Tallahassee, then another open date, and they got some big ones coming up. Of course, that one at the end of the year. So by the time he gets to that game, this was his 5th start. So that will be his 9th start. So as long as he stays healthy when State comes to town. So he'll be fairly experienced at that point. Mm-hmm. So he deserves kudos for the way he played.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. He was really good, man. So, yeah, good day at the office for North Carolina, man. It really was. Good day at the office for the Tar Heels. And like I just said a few minutes ago, fans, just go enjoy it. Stop.
Is this a 31-minute 3 things?
Oh, yeah, we always go 30. It's like snap of a finger where 30 minutes.
When Chelsea and I do it, it's quick because she doesn't really add it. She doesn't add a lot of her thoughts.
Yeah.
She's learning. She's still feeling her way around. Mm-hmm. Wow, 31 minutes for 3 things.
Hey, man, that's what happened. We've been doing these things for about going on 6 years now.
I got a lot of work to do. I don't want to watch game 2 tonight.
Heck yeah, man. I'm going to let you run because you got plenty of work to do. And again, you got an exhibition game to cover tomorrow in Chapel Hill, too. So don't forget about
Chelsea will be there. Chelsea will do the 3 things with me tomorrow.
Yeah, I've been communicating with her a little bit today. So she's ready to roll. She got the thumbnails. She's good to go, man. She's all set for tomorrow afternoon. So, yeah, football and basketball. The overlap is officially here. Season hasn't started yet for basketball, but for us, it started weeks and weeks ago. So, AJ, 41-14 win over Virginia in Scott Stadium. Carolina improving to 4-4 in the year and getting the first ACC win of the season, 1-3 in the league. And we'll see if they can carry a good performance on to Tallahassee next Saturday, where AJ will be there for that one. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Like the video below if you're happy with the win. If you think Carolina can go down to Florida State and win as well, let's get some likes on this one, man. Let's run it up. It's been a.
Let me know if you like the glasses.
I do like the glasses.
I gotta read it. I
like the glasses.
When you guys see a lot of crappy tweets from me with all kinds of foreign languages and stuff on there, it's because I'm not wearing my glasses, my reading glasses. And this thumb sucks at phone typing. this, you know what, right here.
Hey, on that note, we're going to go ahead and get the heck out of here. Appreciate y'all watching as always. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Hit that notification bell too. Keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your coverage of Carolina football, basketball, and recruiting. Come on over and sign up. $8.33 a month. You can be a Carolina insider too. Appreciate it, guys. See y'all next time. Thanks.